Order at 10 a.m. this morning, on time. Great. You want to proceed with a roll call?
Thomas McNeil,
Present?
Steven Hernandez, Paul Philpott, Victoria Veltri,
I'm here.
and Theodore Doolittle.
Here.
And for the record, if the staff want to indicate who's present?
Sure, I'll start, Mr. Chair. This is Glenn Jurgen, Director of Human Resources, Access Health Connecticut.
Susan Ridgeby, Director of Legal and Governmental Affairs, Access Health Connecticut.
Marcin Olachowski, Governance Specialist.
Okay. Is that it for the day?
I believe so at this point.
Okay.
I know James was intent on joining, so he may show up in another moment or two.
Okay. Why don't we proceed with the review and approval of the minutes? That's the minutes of September 9th, 2021 and September 30th, 2021, special meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, we have to make two roll calls, two separate roll calls.
Okay.
For those.
Well, why don't we take September 9th first? And I'd entertain a motion that we approve the September 9th minutes, assuming there are no comments on them.
So moved. Ted.
I'll
Do we
second.
have? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the
Mr.
approval
Chair,
of
we
the
have. Sorry for interrupting that. We have to make a roll call.
Okay.
Thomas McNeil,
Yes.
Steven Hernandez, Paul Philpott, Victoria Veltri,
I'll vote yes, even though I think I was not there, but I'll vote yes.
Theodore Doolittle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the second motion I'd entertain is approval of the minutes for September 30th, 2021.
So moved by Ted.
Second.
Okay, it's been, why don't we call the roll for that vote?
Thomas McNeil,
Yes.
Steven Hernandez, Paul Philpott, Victoria Veltri,
Yes.
and Theodore Doolittle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we've approved the, you want to proceed with the staffing updates at this point, Glenn?
Mr. Chair, we have to amend the agenda. There is a third vote.
Okay. Yeah,
To,
amend the agenda to remove the post-pandemic back to work strategy and to add recruiting and best companies to work for in Connecticut. Could I have a motion on that?
So moved by Ted.
Seconded.
Thank you. Roll call, Thomas McNeil,
Yes.
Steven Hernandez, Paul Philpott, Victoria Veltri,
Yes.
and Theodore Doolittle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Guess now we can proceed with the staffing update.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom, and thank you everybody for joining us today. It's been some time since we've gotten together in the virtual sense, and I know I've sent multiple updates to this committee in lieu of the meeting, so it is nice to see everyone on screen here, and thanks for taking the time to attend. But just a brief update I want to provide to everybody. We haven't seen a significant change in our staffing numbers, but I always enjoy presenting these to everybody just to get a feel for what the organization looks like, you know, from the perspective of a couple different categories here. I know I've mentioned this in the past, but we're really fortunate to work for a really diverse organization. As you can see, we have a good number of our employees, you know, who are Hispanic, Black or African American, multiracial, Asian. So it's as far as it goes for other organizations, we do extremely well in this category, which is great for internal collaboration. But as you know, our customer base comes from a wide variety of both backgrounds and economic backgrounds. So to have this level of diversity within the organization, not only again for collaboration customers, has been extremely helpful. And a number of our employees are bilingual. Some I would say speak more than 2 languages. So really, really proud of that to have here at Access Health. Very diverse and well-educated workforce. Marcin, if we could go to the next slide. Generation, this one's always important to look at. I think we're all aware of the difference in thought practices of generation. So it helps to put this, in a graphical format. And for those of you who've been on the committee for a while, we've probably seen this shift slightly over the past few years as we move along. The organization is starting to see some of the younger generation, Generation X. But right now, believe it or not, our millennials are our biggest demographic group in terms of generation, which is pretty fascinating to me. It just goes to show our workforce, and I say it in air quotes, is getting younger. I mean, it's all relative to where some of us are on this curve here, but I know as someone who's been in the workforce for a while, I sometimes see it. And
hey, Glenn,
I think
is
he
Glenn
froze a little.
is frozen? Yes, but
Yeah.
look, you can see that the baby boom is a shrinking pool. It is shrinking. So, and I'm on the tail end of the baby boomers. It is shrinking every year. It gets a little smaller, and the Generation X and Gen Y, Gen Z, are getting bigger.
Would you say that's true across the state or just Access Health?
That's probably more common across the board.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is what we track to make sure that we try to make to see how where we line up and make sure our recruiting processes are fair and open.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn, you were
Excellent.
frozen there for a minute, okay?
okay,
Okay.
can everybody
Yes,
hear me
we got
again
you.
now?
Yeah, we got you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, if that happens again, please just let me know. And if I keep talking, just wave your hand to distract me. But appreciate it. But again, a very interesting chart, and as I'm sure you're all aware, on the other hand, it's always good to have that diversity of ideas because different generations have different approaches to solutioning or coming up with new products and proposals to bring forth. So we're in the same realm as a lot of organizations, but I always enjoy sharing this one with you. And Marcin, if we could go to the next slide. Gender, this, folks, has been pretty static since we've been meeting over the last few years. We are a more heavily oriented female organization, with a little over 50%, the males just under 45%. And our pay type continues to lean towards the salaried side, which with 68%.
Glenn froze for me again.
Glenn, you're frozen. So with respect to the pay type, obviously the more salary type you have in terms of pay types, it stabilizes our budget until the salaries are fixed. When you have hourly, that varies because of overtime. And certain times of year, open enrollment, certain recruiting that we have, certain outreach efforts could become very expensive when we are leveraging hourly employees and the employees who actually go into the community and engage with the community. And we're doing a lot more of it directly now that we have reduced our reliance on a vendor. Again, the hourly rate becomes, so we have to manage that a little bit more tighter because we are using more of our own staff to do more outreach as opposed to a vendor. We have more control we're able to pivot a lot faster than we were able to, with the vendor. Before that, when we hired the vendor has to go out and recruit people in those communities to go. So right now we have staff that represent the communities that we serve, from New Haven to Hartford and New London. So it's very easy. It's very easy to deploy them very quickly. Plus, they know who we are. They don't have to learn it. So again, the hourly rate, the hourly pay type, a little bit more challenging to manage, because the more hours they spend, the more we have to pay from a perspective of overtime. I'm not
Just
sure what's going on. Yes, sir.
Just a question. You know what our minimum hourly rate is?
Glenn is a little closer to it than I am, but I believe right now our lowest paid hourly rate is in the low to mid 20s.
Correct. That's correct. Can you folks
yeah.
hear me?
Yes, we
You can
can.
hear.
Okay, I'm going to keep my camera off just to hopefully save some bandwidth here, but I'll pop on camera. I'm not being bashful. I just want to keep the cadence of this going, so I apologize. But James, that's correct. Yeah, low $20 an hour is where we're at, and you know, that's the entry point for the folks in our customer resolution team.
And also, just kind of about 3.5 years ago, and I first took over as CEO, we looked at our employees and just did a quick analysis of our employees. We had a study done to look at the market and market rate where our employees settle. And there was a significant gap between women employees and our men employees in terms of salary.
Mm-hmm.
I think we shared with the HR committee back then that within 3 months of getting that report, we made the adjustments.
Mhm.
This was based, there weren't any nefarious behaviors on that. Just that when people were hired earlier on, it was more male, and they got paid more money because AHCT was brand new, we were recruiting, and we had to be a little bit more competitive in market for people to come and work with AHCT Health. Since then, we've been hiring more people at more market rate. So there's a significant gap between the employees that were hired earlier on versus, and so that is why we made that adjustment. And a number of our employees, mostly women, got elevated to what it should have been. But we did that within 3 to 6 months after I started. I took over as CEO.
Just curious, is there also a tendency for the hourly to move to salary positions?
Len?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. If there's an opening internally, we've had that happen with a few of our folks who've moved from one department to another department, who've expanded upon their roles. It certainly depends on what role or what department they want to go into. But just recently, we've probably had 2 or 3 people over the past year or so who've been able to transition out from hourly to salary. And Tom, it might not be a direct move, so they may move from customer service to another department, and they still may be hourly. However, there might be some more upward mobility in that department, and then, you know, it might not be this immediate job change, but the one following would result in a change from hourly to salary. So the opportunities are there.
Yeah, I got you.
So, Tom, one additional point to that. If you remember doing our training last Friday, operations have been reducing their staff as we invest more into technology, where technology is making them more efficient. And as individuals post to other roles within the organization out of customer service, those roles, we fill them. We move them to other areas of the company where that's lacking. So we've been able to do some internal movements to avoid having to hire more people that we cannot afford to. So we just reposition staff, the vacancies to other departments. That's in greater need than operations. And operations could afford to reduce their staff as we become more efficient because of technology. And we have been investing a lot more in our technology over the last several years.
Question about the hourly. The hourly part-time hourly or full-time hourly?
Full-time. The only part-time we have at this time, Tom, tend to be our interns.
Mhm.
But overall, the staffing levels right now of 94 employees, those are all full-time, 40-hour-a-week employees.
Okay.
And Tom, we do have temporary staffing. Remember, last Fridays, we do have temporary staffing, like doing 1095, doing our 1095 season where we bring in knowledgeable folks from the call center
Mhm.
to support our 1095 efforts as we close out the year.
Mhm.
And also, we have hired temporary staffing from our call center to support the Cover Connecticut effort that we had going on last year, and we're probably going to do the same thing this year as well.
Mhm. Good.
Okay, any other questions before we move to the next slide, folks? Okay, this I want to share this with everybody. There's been a lot of talk. I'm sure you're all aware of what's going on out there in the general job market. But here's a snapshot of how Access Health has been doing in the current calendar year. So obviously, just under 6 months of performance here. You know, a 4.4% growth rate. That was due to filling some vacancies we've had. We've had a very low turnover rate here, as you can see. That's in the single digits. And our average tenure is almost 5 years, which is impressive for an organization that ostensibly is really just 10 years old. So a number of our staff have been here for about half of the existence of the exchange. But we were fortunate. You know, we did see some turnover last year, but that's really stabilized over the past 6 months or so. And I really attribute that to obviously the mission and vision of the organization. People are extremely engaged in what we do and helping the residents of Connecticut. It's not just the quote unquote job. There's a mission here that people feel connected to, but you know, also the culture as well. Even when we were remote, we were doing frequent gatherings and still continue to do frequent gatherings in a virtual sense. But you know, with the hybrid schedule, which has been working out well, we're back in the office 2 days a week with 2 groups. We've actually had some requests to do larger gatherings with all of the employees because you know, the Monday, Tuesday group misses seeing their colleagues in the Wednesday, Thursday group. So that was kind of refreshing to hear that the staff does miss the respective colleagues on the other group that's in the office. We'll keep an eye on what's going on with COVID, but I do want to mention that we are having a family reunion in early June. So we look to be capturing most people before the summer vacation starts and the school year ends. We're going to be doing that just as we did last year over at Dunkin' Donuts Park. I'll be in the pavilion, so it can be socially distanced if people want to maintain a social distance. But it worked out really well. Just to put some context around that, folks, when we did that last year, we had not seen each other for almost a year and a half. I mean, some people certainly got together, but we were fully remote. And it was amazing how quickly it was as if people hadn't been apart. Just how quickly everybody came together. It was a really, really neat thing to see, and just speaks to kind of the tightness and kind of the family atmosphere that we have here at Access Health. So really look, these numbers say, you know, where we're at, but I also feel there's some significant context behind it, and our uniqueness and our employees' dedication really keeps these numbers where they're at, and certainly enjoy sharing these with you folks because it's something to be proud of.
Just very quickly, you know, the turnover rate, not all employees left on their own. Some because of performance, and we asked them to leave. And this is after we followed all of our internal requirements, giving people countless opportunities to improve performance. But we did have a couple individuals where we had to ask them to leave because they weren't doing their job. And also we have, that we claimed, 3 employees this year. I think 2 or 3 employees this year that will be celebrating their 10th anniversary with the organization. At least 2, maybe 3.
So, Jane, what's the normal? I mean, what's an average turnover rate right now? Do we know? Like what,
What's an average what?
or what like the average turnover rate is?
For us?
Is this like in the last year, the turnover rate? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have
Yeah.
asked.
I think it's for the first 6 months of the year.
Yep, first six
Oh.
months, Vicky. This is this calendar year.
Yeah.
I would say, Vicky, you know, if we were, it's kind of hard to pick our peer group because, you know, the other exchanges are a little bit different from us. But, you know, let's kind of look at it statewide in Connecticut.
Yeah.
I'll go out on a limb and say I'm going to bet this in just this current marketplace, it's probably in the double digits. You know, I would say conservatively, maybe 9–10%. It just seems there's still a lot of activity out there in terms of recruiting. It's a job seekers market right now. You know, I'll get into some of the detail on the next few slides, but from what I'm hearing from some of my HR colleagues out there, you know, time to fill can be a challenge. They've got people who will just, the proverbial ghosting, you know, people just stop calling back or showing up to interviews because they have a lot of different options. So I don't have the data in front of me, but I'm confident in saying that we're definitely, I would say, more likely on the low side of that.
Hmm.
You.
Okay. And to get into the recruiting, since the first of the year, as you can see, and James mentioned some of the reasons behind that, we had 8 hires, and for our organization our size, that's quite a few in 6 months. Just a quick reminder: the HR department is 2 people. We do have a third member of the department, but they're in charge of the front desk, so they don't really get involved too much in the day-to-day and the confidential issues of HR. And out of the 2 of us, Jessica Briggs, our senior generalist, does a lot of the heavy lift on the recruiting. So if we do a little bit of math here, you know, with 8 hires and the hiring managers are picking between 3 and 5 candidates for each role, and then we have 30 to 40 minutes where
Well, I could speak a little bit more until Glenn gets back on the horn, if you will. The process we have is fully automated. It's all automated. We invested in some technology. Our payroll system is also our employee expense management system, as well as recruiting and employee performance. So the entire process is run through one HR system, Paylocity. And again, everything's tracked. So there are no emails going back and forth, and applicants log into an account that's set up for them to do the application, and the interviews are conducted in the same manner. It's all virtual at this point. And so far, that's served us well. It made us much more efficient. That's how we could go to 25 days from recruiting, from somebody leaving and hiring somebody. So if you've been part of all other organizations, sometimes it takes months just to fill a position. And I have colleagues of mine in other organizations. The turnover rate is over 20%. And they recruit people. They hire somebody, the person never shows up, or they show up and they go home. They don't come back the next day because they got a call from another job they had applied to. So that's more the norm right now. That happened to us a couple of times last year. We hired somebody that came in, and then we hired somebody and they accepted the role, but they never showed up. They called towards the day before they were supposed to start, so they just got another job offer. So it's an extraordinarily competitive marketplace, especially in certain skill sets and technology space in particular, is where this is more. It's much more challenging.
I guess that's
Thank
why
you, James.
unemployment rate is so low.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy.
3.5.
Yeah.
3.5.
Yeah, definitely. So. Can you folks hear me again? I apologize.
Yes, we got you, Glenn.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, thanks, folks. I'm not sure what's going on with the internet today. That's the router's definitely going to get a reboot after this meeting, but it's neither here nor there. But thank you for filling in, James. Yeah, and definitely, I'm proud of our average time to fill under 30 days. That's really impressive. And to hinge upon what James said, that also speaks to our hiring managers. with this new system that we have, that's not so much based on emailing back and forth, the hiring managers can go in and start scanning the applicants that come in. So they've been helping us with this process as well. They're excited to go in and look at the applications, see what the candidates' backgrounds look like. So they've been driving and keeping this process moving. But, you know, as you can see, there's still a good number of folks to look through, even since the first of the year. 130 resumes and applications to look at. And then if we look at year over year with 16 hires, and our average fill time was only 3 days higher than it is with the 8 hires we had from this calendar year, and a total of 417 candidates. So that's a lot of data to sort through. We're a hands-on HR department. We don't have any AI scanning the resumes or anything of that. So we're all taking a look at those and going through it. It's a very people-centric process. But you know, proud of the work we do with the small number of employees and the efficiencies we're able to use through technology.
Just a question on, Glenn, what's your interviewing process? I mean, do you do individual interviews, group interviews? How does that work?
We do group interviews. So HR has the initial point of contact and sets up the interviews. They've all been virtual lately, Tom, just because usually the interview teams are sometimes cross-departmental. So you may not have all the same people in the office every day. And we've been trying to limit the visitors, but the virtual interviews have been working well. We've all been kind of at this virtual remote work operation going on for quite some time now. It actually works out well for the candidates, because if you're going to budget an hour for the interview, that's really all the time that they have to spend on it. You know, they're not traveling to our office, traveling back. So it's been a bit more convenient for everybody. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going a little long, Tom. But yeah, it's all of these are pretty much panel interviews. The smallest group we'll have is usually 2 people, but we like to get a lot of feedback and get a consensus from the group. Again, because everybody has, they see different things, given the diverse nature of our organization. So we like to get all those different opinions as we move through the interview process. All right, Martin, why don't we move ahead to the next slide? All right, folks, really excited about this. You've probably heard of it. I know James has mentioned it at some of the board meetings, but for the 3rd year in a row, we were named one of the best companies to work for in Connecticut. And I placed a copy here of our certificate, which I proudly have displayed in my area back at the office. Martin, if you want to go ahead to the next slide here, we'll get into some detail. So we were selected, we're 14th out of small and medium companies, which is made up of organizations between 15 and just under 200 employees. These were all private sector companies. We were the only quasi or state agency in the rankings. And this, I think, really speaks a lot to us. You folks all know, you know, the scrutiny that we're under as a quasi. We're more public facing. State auditors, just everyone looks at you in a different light as well. So to be up against, if you will, I don't want to say against, but in the same lineup as these private sectors, which don't necessarily have all the oversight, they have deeper pockets. I mean, we were, you know, there were companies that were higher in the rankings that had on-site gyms with personal fitness trainers that you could book. And I mean, hey, it would be great, but it's just, we don't have the budget for those kind of items. So for us to be named a best company and working with what we work with, I think is really impressive. And we put a lot of work into our culture, and that's really what allows us to rise to the top here. And also having a mission and vision that our employees believe in. And to kind of get into that, everyone, you know, 25% of this is what we as an organization do. Our benefits, our policies, our practices, our general company information. So the way this is set up is, you know, you can have the most amazing things out there, but the real meat and potatoes here is the 72 questions that the employees fill out that's on employee engagement and satisfaction. So again, you know, no matter how good the employer is, the employees need to enjoy working there. So this is really driven by the employees. This is not one of those, hey, buy a, a spread in our magazine, and we'll kind of put you in the running for this. These are the employees voting on this, and stating that we are a great place to work in Connecticut. And this is the third year in a row that we've placed. And again, it's been quite an accomplishment, because we've had remote time built into that. We've had hybrid time built into that. And the fact that we can be consistent with this process, whether we're in person, whether we're at home 100% of the time during the pandemic, or we're in the hybrid environment, I think gives us a pat on the back to say, we're moving this organization in the right direction culturally. We have an engaged workforce. We have happy employees. And this also speaks to, if we look back, folks that are tenure, folks who've been at this organization for half of its life, speaks to why people like coming into work every day. But this is a really good accomplishment. I'm proud of our employees. It's not just leadership, it's not just HR, it's everybody working towards this goal. So I wanted to share this with the group and give a little context, because I know you've all heard about it, but this gives a little granularity to what's involved in it. So again, congrats to Access Health and for you folks for allowing us to do the initiatives and supporting us in the initiatives that we do to be a best company to work for in Connecticut. But I'll open it up if anyone has any questions or comments on this. Okay, well, folks, that's what I had for agenda items today. Again, as I mentioned, we hadn't had the opportunity to get together in the virtual sense for some time, so I appreciate everybody's time and support, and we'll continue to move this forward, and any other big items that we have, I'll bring to this attention. But it was definitely nice to see you today, and I do apologize for some of the internet issues that I had, but we made it through, and thank you all for showing up today.
Yeah. Thank you, Glenn, and certainly is a great accomplishment to be one of the best companies, especially given the level of competition amongst the, I guess, 15 to 200 employees group, including private agencies, and us being the only quasi agency.
Thank you.
That's certainly quite an accomplishment, especially more so 3 years in a row. That's really consistency, and I would imagine that's hard to do anywhere, but that's great accomplishment.
Well, Tom, one of the companies above us, they had Taco Tuesdays where a food truck would show up and give free tacos to the staff on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And one
Bribery works. Bribery works.
It does. And one paid give bonuses every month. It was just over the top,
Crazy.
But people are very happy. So, but I know Glenn has been very modest about this, but this is really a reflection. The entire organization, our leadership team, does a very good time. Does a very good job living out our 6 values, and this is how we manage. And for us, it's about transparency and making sure there's accountability, but more importantly, making sure we're fair to every employee. And we encourage a very open society where every employee is valued, and they know we value them for who they are. And every employee we hire, within the first 30 days, I meet with them for 30 minutes, talk about our values. But I'll tell them all, look, if you forget everything else we talked about, remember this. Whether you're gay, straight, black, tall, short, it doesn't matter who you are. No matter what's going on, we will always value you as a human being first. That's how we're gonna drive every employee that works for Access Health. We value you as a person first, and if anyone is making you feel differently, and only you know that, make sure you talk with HR, myself, or your supervisor. And if your supervisor is the person doing that, you need to let us know immediately so we could address it. And what this does, this kind of set the tone, not just for expectations for the employee, but also what we expect from the employee as well. this is who we are as an organization. They see it every day, and the typical reaction is, yeah, I've seen that. I appreciate that. They're very happy to learn that. Again, that conversation is with every employee, no matter what level they are in the organization.
I got you.
Tom, I have a quick question.
Okay, Ted. Yeah.
Thank you. So, do we track disability status amongst the employees?
Yes, we do, Ted. We go through the ADA process of discovery, and if any accommodations are needed, based on that process, we go through it. So we do have a confidential way of doing that, if you will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any
Sure.
other comments for the good of the order before we consider a motion to adjourn? Okay, at this time, I'd consider a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved. Ted?
Second.
All right. Marcin, you want to take a roll call on that?
Thomas McNeil,
Yes.
Steven Hernandez, Paul Philpott, Victoria Beltry,
Yes.
and Tito Duro.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for
See you
attending.
in a
Yep.
while.
Thank you.
See you in a
Thank
while.
you, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you,
Take
Vicky.
care.
Thank you, Ted.
Yep.
It's
Thank
nice
you.
to see you all.
Thank you.
Good to
Take
see you.
care.
Take care,
Bye.
everybody. Really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everybody.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.